Hello guys, welcome to the 5th module of this course. In this module, I will be showing you how to grade a pant trousers pattern to make a palazzo trousers. Here are my trouser patterns. This pattern is for fitted trousers, which is also known as a pant trousers, and you can grade a basic trouser pattern to make a palazzo as well. But because I don't want my palazzo to be too wide, that is why I decided to make use of my pant trousers pattern. So I have this here as a front panel, and this is a back panel. On the back panel, I did not add any seam allowance yet. This is because this style requires adding seam allowances on both the front and the back panels, unlike the other trousers we made. So for this reason, I will not be adding any seam allowance on the back panel yet. But apart from the seam allowance, every other construction I made in the previous module are applied on this back panel. For instance, slashing the center of the front panel, spreading it by 2 inches, I apply the method. Then on the crotch area, I work on the crotch area as well. I reconstructed the side, okay, and I reconstructed this to the knee point. So every method I applied on the previous back panel trousers are also applied on this. The only difference is the seam allowance. So now that I have this done, the next decision I have to make is the yards of fabric I'm making use of. Now I want to show you how to make a palazzo trousers. We have palazzo, we have dungaree, and we have wide leg. As we proceed in this tutorial, I will be showing you the differences between these 3 types of trousers: dungaree, palazzo, and wide leg. Now, as I said earlier, you have to decide the amount of fabrics you want to use for your palazzo trousers. I'm showing you how to make a palazzo trousers. Okay, so with me here I have 2 yards of fabrics, so which means I will be using 1 yard to cut out the front panel and 1 yard to cut out the back panel. If you want your palazzo pant to be very wide, you can as well increase the amount of yards you will be making use. I can use as much as 3 to 4 yards. I can also make use up to 5 to 6 yards. It depends on how wide you want your trousers to be. Also, it also depends on the thickness of your fabric. You can see the thickness of my fabric here is average, so with the 2 yards I'm okay. Now I have my front panel and I folded my fabric into 2, and because I want to use exactly 1 yard to cut out the front panel, I folded the 1 yard into 2 and I have 18 on fold. If I open it up, I will have 36 inches. 36 inches makes 1 yard. So I'm folding in the real waistline I have on my pattern. I don't want to cut it out because I will still be making use of this pattern. So I'm folding in the line. Then I will place it on my fabric, and I will make sure I have up to ½ of an inch at the upper part of my fabric, because I will be adding ½ of an inch of seam allowance on the waistline. So from the edge I will measure ½ of an inch downward. So I'm taking the measurement from the marked point, ½ of an inch downward as my seam allowance. Then I'll place the edge of my pattern on the ½ of an inch point. Okay, so now that this is done, then I'll come to the dart area. I'm not picking darts on my palazzo because it is a palazzo pant, and of course you can decide to pick a dart as well. It depends on how you want your trousers to be, but for the sake of this tutorial, I will be closing this dart permanently because I want to apply a slash and spread method on my pattern. So in doing this, firstly I will cut out my dart. Okay, so the next step is to come to the hem line of my trousers. So I'll move this upward. So this is the hem line, this is my trouser length point, and this is the hem allowance. So on the hem allowance line, I will get the midpoint. So here is the midpoint. Then excuse me, then I will be connecting the midpoint to the dart point I cut out. Now I have the line drawn out straight from the dart point downward to the hem line. You can see what I have here. Okay, so now that I have this done, then I will open it up from the hem line. So here is the hem line. I will open it up like so. So I will cut all through, and when I'm very close to the dart point, I will stop. Very close to the dart point. Okay, so I can stop now, and I will flip my pattern over. So I've opened up the line I drew out, and this is the dart opening. So I will close the dart like so, and automatically the space I have for my darts, that is the dart intake, will be moved to the lower part of the trousers. You can see what I have. So now I've closed the dart. Can you see what I have here? And you can see the space I have in between the pattern. This is because of the closing I did here. So this is called a slash and spread method. Then I will secure this with my tapes. So guys, now I have my pattern spread on my fabrics. So this is the way I spread my pattern based on the amount of fabrics I'm using. You can see this is the edge of my fabric. So I spread my pattern, and I make sure I have a little bit of space by this side because I will be adding seam allowances all around the pattern. Okay, so I will be adding about 1 inch all around the pattern, so that is why I left a little bit of space by this side. Then on the outseam side as well, I left some spaces by this side in order to add my seam allowance, and I have a little bit of space at the lower part as well because I will be shaping the lower part of the trousers. So after spreading the pattern, the next step is to reshape the trousers because the shape of palazzo is different from the shape of pant trousers. Now if you want to make use of about 3 yards of fabrics or 4 yards, by the time you position your pattern after closing your darts, there is a limit you can go on this. So if you spread it as much as you can, the pattern will tell you that is all the pattern can occupy on the fabric, and you still have the leftover by the side that you still want to make use of. What you need to do is to come to the crotch point. Here is the crotch point, and this is the hip level. Okay, so after slashing the dart line, so you are going to make another slashing at the crotch side. So the slashing you have here is what will give you opportunity to be able to spread your pattern more and occupy the whole of your fabrics. Let's assume I want to extend my fabrics to this edge. So by the time I slash this area, I will be able to spread this forward as much as I can. So in doing this, I will take my straight ruler then place my ruler on the hip point. This is the hip point, this is a crotch area. So I will place it like so, and I will make sure my ruler is positioned straight on my pattern. Then I will draw a straight line. So I will take it straight down to the hemline. Now that I have the line drawn out, then I will be cutting from the hemline straight upward to the tip of the point I started, which is the hip level. So when I'm very close to this edge, I will stop. So now I'm cutting on the straight line. I will cut all through until I get to the tip of the hip level. Now I've slashed the line I drew out, and I stop when I'm very close to the tip of the hip level. So with this, I will be able to spread my pattern more. So if I have more fabric, then I can occupy everything. You can see what I have, so I can take as much as the fabric I want. So that is if you want to use more than the yards I'm using here. In this tutorial, I'm using 2 yards as I said earlier, and this is where 1 yard stops. So 1 yard will be for the front panel and 1 yard will be for the back panel. But in case you want to make use of 2.5, 3 yards, so which is going to be like 2 yards for the front or 1.5 yards for the front. So with this, you will be able to spread your pattern more. But for this, if you cut out your dart and you close it dart, so there's a limit to how much you can spread this pattern. When it gets to a stage, it will not move anymore. You can see what I have. Instead of moving, the pattern will be squeezing. Okay, so because I've closed the darts I have here. Now if you want to spread more, this is what you will do. So that is that about spreading more of your pattern. So now I want to explain the differences between the dungaree, the palazzo, and the wide leg. How can you achieve these 3 different styles? And I will start with dungaree. So excuse me, I will have to close this back because I don't want to spread my pattern more than this. So guys, now I have this fixed, as you can see. Now as I was explaining the difference between dungaree, wide leg, and palazzo pants. Now I'm going to start my explanation with the wide leg trousers. A wide leg trousers will be fitted from the waistline downward to the knee length. Then from the knee length, the fabric will start increasing little by little until it gets to the hemline. So that is the wide leg pant. Now for palazzo. Palazzo will start increasing from the crotch area, which means the trousers will be fitted from the waistline to the crotch point. Then from the crotch point, it will start increasing gradually until it gets to the hemline. But for the dungaree will only be fitted on the waistline. You will have your exact measurement only on the waistline. But from the waistline downward, you will have a very wide pant, to the extent that the shape of the trousers will look like a skirt. It is only when the leg is being opened you will know it is a trousers. So that is a dungaree. If you are constructing dungaree, you have to use up to 3 yards for the front panel and 3 yards for the back panel because it has to be very wide.